We'll call this meeting on March the 8th of the House Agricultural and Natural Resources Subcommittee to order. I think we now have a quorum. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Representative Cochran. Here. Darby. Here. Halford. Here. Holsey. Here. Hurt. Here. Potts. Reedy. Here. Shaw. Here. Chairman Todd. Present. Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum.
Thank you, ma'am. And let's see, I need my fact of the day, if I could get that. We switched up our order a little bit today and forgot to get that in front of me. The U.S. imports $129 billion worth of agricultural products each year, but the nation maintains a positive trade balance by exporting $137 billion worth of harvested goods. Soybeans are planted on more acres than any other row crop in Tennessee and is currently the primary commodity in the state for cash receipts. According to the U.S. Department of Agriculture, the most valuable crop grown in Tennessee is soybeans, with a total number of 1.5 million acres planted and a production quantity of 76 million bushels last year. Since 2010, soybean acreage has increased about 2 to 4% per year. In 2016, the Tennessee soybean production cash receipts contributed $680.3 million to the total crop yield and climbed to $965 million last year. So as we've heard in previous presentations, soybeans have a tremendous financial and beneficial impact to the state of Tennessee, and we appreciate those producers. Members, we're going to go out of order right now to accommodate a member from another committee. If there's no objection, we're going to go to item number 6, House Bill 2759 by Chairman Faison. Do I have a motion? Motion. I have a motion and a second, sir. You are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Committee, as I was thinking about this bill, I know every one of you hate the bill and got people worked up all across Tennessee on this bill, and it's funny, the ones I've called, and some of you just can't wait to vote against me. So I understand that, and so thank you for indulging me just for a few seconds. If any of you know me very well, know that I'm an avid hiker. I've hiked all over the state. I've had the privilege of knocking doors all over the state. And over the last 4 or 5 years of my life, I've been amazed at the litter problem in Tennessee. It's a sore spot for me. Anybody who cares about our state and loves our state, it looks terrible. It hurts us. It hurts us with industry. Those of us that care about the outdoors, if you know anything about litter, it is devastating to the agriculture community. Anybody who uses a combine because of litter, it breaks equipment, it kills animals. So we brought this bill thinking we need to do something in Tennessee. I don't have the answer yet of what we need to do. Tasser is studying this, which if y'all have any respect for Tasser, which I do, they've got industry leaders and people coming from all over the state. And if the Lord allows me to come back next year, hopefully Tasser will have something that we can live with, along with the bottling industry and everybody else who's working on this. So I'm, with y'all's permission, I'd like to take it off notice, but I'd just like to go on record saying what we're doing currently in Tennessee doesn't work. And it's getting worse. So I know that if what we're doing doesn't work, then there's got to be a better answer. So that's what we're trying to do. And Mr. Chairman, with your indulgence, I will take the bill off notice.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. And without objection, House Bill 2759 is taken off notice. That brings us back to item number 1 on our calendar, House Bill 2129 by Chairman Marsh. Mr. Marsh, you are recognized, sir. You have a motion and a second.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I do have an amendment. It's 014648.
Yes, sir. We have a motion on the amendment and a second. You're recognized, sir.
And the amendment makes the bill. And what we're doing with this bill is in the state of Tennessee, we have 185,000 lifetime license holders for hunting and fishing license, 185,000. And they buy them up front, and there's no more money from the rest of their life. So what we're trying to do here is come up with a vehicle where we can invest that money and make some returns off of that without having to go up on hunting and fishing license now or in the future. What we're doing here, this substitutes the Wildlife Management Endowment Fund with the Lifetime Sportsman's Endowment Fund and establishes that the Lifetime Sportsman's Endowment Fund is an irrevocable trust for the exclusive benefit of lifetime sportsman license holders. This requires that the income earned and accruing from investments of the trust must only be used for the exclusive benefit of lifetime sportsman license holders and to pay the reasonable expenses incurred in administrating and investing the trust assets. This creates a group of trustees that will oversee the sportsman fund and prescribe investment policies and guidelines. The state treasurer and the treasurer's designee shall serve as the chair of such committee. What we're doing is we're making this trust, and that way these funds, which is $71 million that are sitting with the treasurer now, and they're making $113,000 interest a year. If we change the makeup of this and do this trust, then the treasurer can invest it like he does with our retirement funds, and we're hoping that we'll be able to take in $4 to $5 million a year, which will help us not increase our license in the future. With that, I'll answer any questions.
Thank you for that explanation. Any questions or comments on the bill?
Question on the amendment?
We have a question called on the amendment. There's no objections. We'll be voting on the amendment. Drafting code 14648. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendment goes on the bill. And the amendment makes the bill, as I understand. So are they, seeing no objections to the question, we will be voting on House Bill 2129 as amended. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Your bill moves on to full committee. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members.
Brings us to item number 2, House Bill 2168, and that's been asked, we've been asked to roll that 1 week. Without objection, roll 1 week. Item number 3 is by Chairman Halford. Would you have any objection? I don't know if we've got other members that are. We'll roll this to the heel, and we try to take care of outside members before we get to committee members, and that brings us. I don't think I have to roll it to the heel, do I? So that item is rolled to the heel. Brings us to item number 4, 2457 by Chairman Kiesling. Do I have a motion? Motion. We have a motion and a second. Chairman Kiesling, you're recognized on 2457.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And this is traveling with an amendment. That amendment drafting code is 14084.
Yes, sir. That's what we have. We have a motion and a second on the amendment. Sir, you're recognized.
Okay, thank you very much. The amendment does make the bill, I might add. So the physical notes summary is spot on regarding the gist of this. It prohibits the TWRA from seizing personal property of a person without due process, and further requires a court order prior to seizure of personal property. Members, that more specifically, it's relative to a motor vehicle or anything that is drawn by that motor vehicle, such as camper or trailers. And with that, I will entertain any questions regarding the amendment. You're
Okay.
still on the amendment.
If the committee desires, we'll go ahead and get the amendment on the bill. If there's no objections, we'll vote on the amendment since it makes the bill. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The motion carries, and the amendment is on the bill now, sir.
Okay.
Representative Shaw, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Has TWRA been seizing property?
Chairman Kiesling?
Well, that's my understanding, and I think they're here. And Chairman, if you might want to recognize them or go out of session, of course, clearly up to you. But I'd rather TWRA answer that, Representative Shaw, myself, since I've not been involved in any arrest or anything subject to any of that.
Does anyone want to go out of session to do that, or do we?
Not necessarily. I
Okay.
just thought maybe he knew.
Okay, I appreciate it. Any other questions for the sponsor? Seeing none, without objection, we'll be voting on House Bill 2457. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Your bill moves on to full committee, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And members,
Brings us to item number 5, House Bill 2560, which has been requested to be rolled 1 week. So that bill is rolled 1 week. Item number 6, we have disposed of. Item number 7, House Bill 2328 by Representative Grills has been taken off notice. Item number 8, House Bill 2869 by Representative Griffey has been taken off notice. And because this bill has been calendared 3 times, we will move this bill to be placed on the special calendar to be published with the committee's final calendar. Item number 9, House Bill 2033 by Representative Freeman. We have a motion. We have a second. Representative Freeman, you're recognized on House Bill 2033.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I have an amendment, drafting code 014093.
That's what we have. We have a motion and a second on the amendment, sir. You're recognized.
Okay. Do we want to put the amendment on and then I can discuss it as a whole? Or
Does it make the bill?
It makes a portion of the bill. I can define a piece of the amendment if you'd like.
We can certainly do that without objection. We'll vote on the amendment, House Drafting Code 014093. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Your amendment goes on, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're recognized.
So last year, we passed a CPACE legislation, and it went into existence, and as it was beginning to be worked through by different municipalities, we realized there was an oversight in language that contradicted each other, and some language needed to be added to clarify other definitions. Over the summer, we worked with bankers to bring this bill and address those issues. The correction from last year is stating the amount of the assessment plus any existing indebtedness on the property does not exceed 90% of the fair market value, and the amount of the assessment does not exceed 25% of the fair market value. The clarification of definition is also what is a commercial property. This bill states that a property owned by a state or local government but leased to a private entity such as a housing authority, industrial development authority, et cetera, could constitute as a commercial property for CPACE. That was a big part of the problem. We also clarified the fees in which local governments could charge for being program administrators to ensure all costs are being covered. All parties have signed off, bankers, local governments, property assessors, and the amendment that we just put on requires that any local government be held harmless throughout the contractual process. And with that, I stand ready for any questions.
Thank you, sir. Any questions for the sponsor? Seeing none, are you ready to vote? We do have one question. Representative Halsey.
I don't know if you can answer this. How did this get assigned to Agriculture Sub? Seems to me that it would have been in another committee more aptly fitting for this. And even you might not have an answer. I don't know. I couldn't figure it out.
That is well above my pay grade, sir.
I would assume it because it has something to do with energy and saving energy, I believe, if I remember correctly from last year. It's kind of under our purview. Any other questions? Seeing none, we'll be voting on House Bill 2033 as amended. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Your bill moves on to full, sir.
Thank you, Chairman and Committee.
Next item is item number 10, House Bill 1910 by Representative Thompson. Representative Thompson, do I have a motion? We have a motion. Do I have a second? Second. We have a second. Sir, you are recognized on House Bill 1910.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a bill dealing with animal welfare agencies, and as welfare agencies in Tennessee increase community outreach work in our highest intake, lowest income communities, the goal is to bring essential services like vaccinations and microchipping to the communities where people live. This bill would allow these agencies to extend these services to the community under the supervision of a licensed veterinarian. The change, it's already been approved by the Senate. It would allow agencies already approved and licensed by the State Board of Veterinary Medical Examiners as certified animal control agencies to hold vaccine and microchipping events in the community and where the need is the greatest and under the supervision of a licensed veterinarian. And I'll be glad to answer any questions or explain further.
Any questions from the committee? Representative Holsey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think I understand your bill. A veterinarian can do this now. They can go out to a farm. They can go in the neighborhood. They can do these things. Why would you want to add another layer to what they can already do?
Well, under the current system, they're required to have things like access to a mobile vet clinic vehicle, which are pretty expensive to own and to operate. They have requires a veterinarian specifically licensed as a mobile vet to work the event, which can also be very expensive. And they're hard to find too, very few and far between, especially in rural and low population areas. And they stay very busy in their own private practice, so it's hard to do. One thing I can do, if allowed, but I believe there's a speaker on this bill in the audience, and if it's okay, we can go out of session, and I'm sure she can explain this in even more detail.
Okay, this person, I think, do you have a name?
Jessica Hyder.
Okay, she is on our list to testify if you'd like to do that. If there are no objections, we can go out of session and hear from her. Without objections, we're out of session. Ms. Hyder, you are recognized.
Good morning, Chair and Committee. My name is Jessica Hyder. I work for the Humane Society of the United States as the Tennessee State Director. To answer your question, Representative Holsey, we're talking about specifically the 67 certified animal control agencies in the state of Tennessee. So we're not specifically talking about vets who are out doing private practice. We're talking about the certified animal control agencies who are wanting to provide services throughout the community under the supervision of a licensed vet. So in early January, we reached out to the Tennessee Board of Veterinary Medical Examiners to inquire if we could do this as a rule change. They reached out and said, unfortunately not. This would have to be something that was a statute change in law. So when this bill was crafted, we made sure to use definitions that were already in the vet code, in the TCA. So the responsible supervision of a vet means the control, direction, regulation by a licensed vet of the duties involving veterinarian services, such as veterinary delegation to such veterinarian personnel. So we wanted to make sure that we already used language that was already defined in code so that there was no misconstruing of what that responsible vet was in charge of. So this change would allow only certified animal control agencies approved already by the state that were licensed as those certified animal control agencies to provide these services, vaccine and microchipping, community clinic activities to those underserved populations with a vet present and directing that activity.
Thank you, Ms. Hyder. Anybody have any questions for Ms. Hyder? Representative Holsey.
Thank you, and I'll be quiet here at some point. So let's take my city and town they have a couple of animal control officers.
Yes.
So you're saying this bill will allow these animal control officers, if they come in contact with a dog or a cat that somebody in the city owns, and they want them to put a microchip in this dog, that this animal control officer can do that under the supervision of a vet, even though the vet's not there. Am I reading that correctly?
No. So this is specifically for programs, community-based programs, whether that be a clinic, primarily it's clinics, for a vet to be supervising that activity. So, if your animal control officer is a vet, then yes, they'd obviously be able to do that. But this is, we wanted to make sure that the vaccines or microchipping was either being done by or under this responsible supervision of a vet.
Representative Hosey?
So if the vet is present, the animal control officer can put a microchip in the dog.
Only if they are, one of those veterinary practice individuals who is able to do that in the state already.
Representative Hosey?
Thank you. So if you have an animal control officer that's not in the veterinary program, they could not do this practice. They couldn't actually do anything then.
Ms. Hyder?
No, so it's, it's not changing who can practice veterinary medicine. This is just allowing certified animal control agencies to provide these services out in the community. Right now, the only way that they can do it is by, one, having a mobile unit, which can be very expensive to own and operate, having a certified mobile vet with them, or by having a Department of Health representative at the cost to that agency. So right now, this isn't defining who can practice veterinary medicine. It's streamlining the process for activities that are already taking place. It's just making this process for certified animal control agencies to provide these clinics in a more streamlined process.
Representative Hosey? Okay. Chairman Halford? Did you want to ask? Okay, you want to sponsor. Representative Shaw?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So what about sanitation-wise? Is this, if you can do this without a mobile unit, would this be safe for animals that you could just go out and do that out of your pickup truck or your car, the trunk of your car, something like that? Can you kind of elaborate on that a little bit?
Ms. Hyder?
Yeah, so, this is not, like I said, this is not changing any of the parameters for veterinary medicine. The vets who are going to be there are the ones who, they know what is required from the state of Tennessee. They know what is, the appropriate sanitation. Like I said, the only thing this does is streamline the process to be able to provide those clinics.
Representative Shaw?
So would I have to be a veterinarian in the area to know the area to do it? But what if I maybe was from some other area of the state, but I was a certified veterinarian, but I don't live there, so I really don't know the layout of the community and the animals and so forth. But I still could do that if I was a certified veterinarian. Is that what we're saying?
Ms. Hyder?
So this would be in participation with that certified animal control agency. So if that animal control agency reached out to you to partner with you, and you either, gave a discounted rate, volunteered your time, charged the full rate, you would be working with that agency during this program. So you wouldn't be out kind of on your own doing this kinds of activities. There's already a process for those mobile veterinarians to operate, large animal vets. There's that process, but those vets, are generally very busy with their own private practice, and so it's very hard to get one of those vets to come in to do some of these activities for certified animal control agencies.
Representative Shaw?
Thank you. Last question, but if it's already a process, why are we doing it then, I guess, would be my question.
Yeah, so, I'm sorry. So the way that
The process right now is for vets specifically. This would be an exemption for the actual animal control agency working with a vet, so that they do not have to go out and find a mobile certified vet to be able to do these clinics.
Representative Reedy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm having a difficulty following all of this. Can you give us an example of how this process would work?
Ms. Hyder.
Definitely. So let's say you have a certified animal control agency. Let's just go with Shelbyville. So Shelbyville has a certified animal control agency who is interested in hosting a microchipping vaccination clinic. Right now, under current state law, they would either have to, one, contact the Department of Health, coordinate and pay for a person to just kind of be at that facility with them when that was happening. Two, they would either have to have a mobile vet unit to be there. Or three, they would have to locate a mobile certified veterinarian to be there taking part in the activities. So basically what this would do is remove some of those barriers, so the vet that they already work with on a regular basis would be able to be that person at that clinic providing those services.
Representative Reedy.
So to understand this, it exempts a certified animal control agency, so it's a physical location for the agency, and we're connecting with a veterinarian saying, come to our location, we're having this chipping vaccine clinic, if that's what we want to call it, but we're exempting that location, no matter how it's operated or whatever, trying to get veterinarians to show up to perform the task. Is that correct?
Ms. Hyder.
So animal control agencies and humane societies are actually already exempted inside the code for the pets that have been surrendered to them. So their physical location for pets that have been surrendered to them is already exempted from a premises permit. What we're talking about is if the local community center in that underserved community were to host, that be the host location. So the certified animal control agency, as well as the vet that they work with, would be traveling to that facility to work with local pet owners who are interested in vaccines and microchipping.
Representative Reedy.
So my last question, I guess I'm concerned as well. So actually with this, without this law that we're going to create, these agencies could already invite a mobile clinic to come and do all of this, and none of this would be necessary, correct?
Ms. Hyder.
So that is correct. However, the amount of mobile clinics available in the state of Tennessee number about 4. And those are operated by individual agencies. So there's one in Nashville, one in Knoxville, and I think about 2 more floating around. But those are the only mobile clinics available in the state.
Representative Reedy, any more? Chairman Halford.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And while we're out of session right here, at your discretion, of course, I don't know if she is on your list or not, but if we could, I'd like to hear from Megan Frazier to give us some insight, if that would be possible. At your discretion, sir.
We certainly get any more questions for Ms. Hyder? Seeing none, thank you so much for coming to help with today. Would Ms. Frazier happen to be here? Might ask you to come up while we're out of session, if you don't mind. Do you have a statement, or are you just available for questions?
I'll make a quick statement, Mr.
Sure.
Chairman, if you don't mind. My name is Megan Frazier, and I represent the Tennessee Veterinary Medical Association. When it comes to what this bill is looking to deal with, we feel as though we can make these requests work under the current law without the bill's passage, but are happy to hear, and want more pets to be vaccinated and microchipped, but that we can work within the current bounds of the law.
Any questions for Ms. Frazier? Okay, thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you.
All right, without any other witnesses on the list, we will go back into session. We're in session. Any further questions for the sponsor? Seeing none, we'll be voting on House Bill 1910. All in favor say aye. Opposed? No. The noes have it, sir.
Thank you, Chairman Committee.
Fails for motion. Next is House Bill 2637, and this is taken off notice, and this bill's been calendared 3 times, so this will move. We're going to move this bill on up to our special calendar to be published with the committee's final calendar. Next, we have item number 12, House Bill 2381 by Representative Parkinson. Do I have a motion? We have a motion and a second, sir. You're recognized on House Bill 2381.
Thank you, members and Mr. Chairman. Appreciate your indulgence. What this bill does is, I sit on TASER along with, and the chairman is Senator Yeager, so we're both carrying this bill. In 2020, TASER did a study on waste tires. We have a real problem in our state of people dumping waste tires in our communities, in our ravines, on the side of our mountains, and and it's really, really disturbing, our the beauty of our state. And this bill adopts those recommendations in that 2020 study. And let me say this also: there is an amendment on the bill, and Mr. Chair, if I can say something before we consider adopting this amendment, I've worked hand in hand with TDEC on this bill, and the amendment that I have before us, it adopts the items that we wanted that I think myself and TDEC agreed on. However, TDEC has another amendment that wouldn't have been timely filed. I wouldn't have got it to you in time, but it's the same language with the exception of removing the public's cause of action. TDEC wants to have the cause of action, which I have no issue with at all. And so my amendment gives the public the ability to sue individuals who are, illegally dumping tires in our community. TDEC's version of the amendment that I didn't get in time, and I'll be happy to let you talk to TDEC about that also, that I didn't get in time, would give TDEC the ability to sue people who are dumping illegally in our communities. I don't have a problem with that. And so I'm asking, Mr. Chair, and if you would be amenable to us in filing TDEC's version of the amendment in place of my version of the amendment, so we can get theirs on. But I didn't get a chance to get it to legal in time because I just got it yesterday.
So we don't have that amendment even drafted?
I got the language. Yes, sir. I got it, but it hadn't been filed with legal in the committee.
They haven't drafted?
Yes, they haven't drafted yet. Okay. Wait, excuse me, I'm not. Do you mind if I ask TDEC for a second?
Go ahead.
So their version of the amendment does not have a drafting code, so it has not been filed with legal yet.
Okay.
Right.
Considering that, if that is something you have been working on, and it probably sounds like it might be preferred by you, then we can roll this a week to our final calendar next week and get that done so that it's timely filed, and we've got the right
Yes, sir.
drafting and everything.
Perfectly fine with that.
Okay.
I appreciate it.
Without
Thank you, sir.
objection, we'll be rolling House Bill 2381 1 week. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next, we have House Bill 2411 by Representative Sherrill. We have a motion and a second. Representative Sherrill, you are recognized on House Bill 2411.
Thank you, Chairman and members. House Bill 2768 does have amendment.
Hold on,
with
sir.
it.
We're on 2411.
Oh, that's been, we're not carrying that bill.
Okay, so that was taken off notice?
Yes. I'm
Okay, we
sorry.
didn't have that, we weren't notified about that. So House Bill 2411 is taken off notice. That brings us to item number 14, House Bill 2768 by Representative Sherrill. Do I have a motion? We have a motion and a second, sir, and you're recognized.
Sorry about that. I thought that it'd been brought to you that it would take it off notice.
And we have an amendment for
On
this
the,
bill?
yes, on House Bill 2768, we do have amendment on it, 014135, which makes
That's
the bill.
what we have, sir. We have a motion on the amendment. We have a second on the amendment. You want to go ahead and put that amendment on? With no objection, we'll be voting on the amendment, drafting code 14135 to House Bill 2768. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The amendment goes on the bill. You're recognized, sir, to tell us what the bill as amended does.
Thank you, sir and Chairman. On the amendment here, with the amendment requires Tennessee Wildlife Resource Agency to comply with all the proceeds of the Department of Agriculture Division of Forestry, which conducts sales of the timber harvested from TWRA's property. So in the situation that we are in, and this is not only in the area that I represent, but across the state of Tennessee, we've had some issues, especially in the area up in the 43rd District with Firestone, Brigstone area, where TWRA is coming in cutting trees, hardwood, and they are not under the guidelines of the Department of Forestry. So we're trying to place them under the Department of Forestry, and the guidelines is that they would follow the guidelines of forestry just like they do as far as harvesting trees.
Okay, any questions for the sponsor? Representative Halsey.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. This would apply across the state then? Anytime TWRA was going to go and harvest trees, they'd have to do so by the protocol that the Department of Forestry uses. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Representative Sherrill.
Okay. Yes.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, without objection, we'll be voting on House Bill 2768 as amended. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, sir. Your bill
Thank
moves on to
you,
full
Chairman
committee.
and members.
Motion for Dr. Reed. Second.
I'm making sure we don't have any others, non-committee, so this, I think we're in good position here. Before us now is House Bill 2516 by Representative Reedy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I do have
Do we have a motion? We have a motion and a second, sir. You're recognized.
an amendment that rewrites the bill, and that drafting code is 14890.
Okay, that's what we have as well. To have a motion on the amendment. Motion. Second. We have a motion and a second. Let's go ahead, since it rewrites the bill, and we'll put that on without objection. We'll be voting on the amendment, drafting code 14890. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendment goes on, sir. You're recognized.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and committee members. As you recall, a few weeks ago, I presented the bill, took it off notice with discussion further with the Department of Military, TDEC, the governor's staff, and this amendment reflects, I'll read, I'm actually reading off the fiscal memorandum because the question was, who would have the authority over this piece of legislation if it passes, and it attaches this task force to the Tennessee Emergency Management Agency for administrative, fiscal, and personnel purposes only, and it is to operationally independent from the agency. Certainly, I guess I could take any questions if members have any questions about the bill.
Any questions for the sponsor? Seeing none, if you're ready to vote, we'll be voting on House Bill 2516 as amended. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Your bill moves on to the House Ag Full Committee, sir. Item number 16 by Chairman Halford, House Bill 213. We have a motion and a second. Sir, you're recognized on House Bill 213.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and House Bill 213 is brought to me by the Veterinarian Association. It does two things. It updates the Tennessee Veterinary Practice Act to mirror the practice of other health-related boards in Tennessee to allow a current member of the Tennessee Board of Veterinary Medical Examiners to be reappointed to serve a successive term. And number two, it updates the definition of veterinary facility to reflect current state of practice of veterinary medicine. For instance, an example would be if you had Nashville Veterinary Clinic and just down the road you had Nashville Veterinarian Hospital. Those need to be the same. People may feel that if it's called a hospital, it has more ability or a higher level of ability than somebody else might have. And so, Mr. Chairman, that's what the bill does.
Thank you, sir. Any questions for the sponsor? Seeing none, if you're ready to vote, we'll be voting on House Bill 213. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? The bill passes, sir. Moves on to the House Ag Full Committee. Next on the agenda, we have House Bill 2056 by Representative Hurt. I have a motion. We have a motion. I have a second. Sir, you're recognized on House Bill 2056.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I believe we have an amendment on this one also.
Yes, sir. Drafting Code 14579.
Yes, sir.
Okay. We have a motion and a second on the amendment. Does it make the bill?
Yes, sir.
Okay. We'll go ahead and put that on. If there are no objections, all in favor of drafting code 014579 going on House Bill 2056, please say aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. The amendment goes on the bill, sir. You're recognized as amended.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. The purpose of House Bill 2056, of course, it makes the bill, but this is steps to address solar panels. The amendment is straightforward. This amendment requires each large lease for the installation of solar equipment to include a decommissioning plan with financial assurances. The word large means a solar power facility capable of generating more than 10 gigawatts. That facility would require about 100 acres of land for solar panels. Recognizing and hoping that House Bill 2761 by Representative Gant that authorizes a TASR study will eventually pass, it seems premature to try to address all the issues a large solar installation may bring. The amendment reflects a consensus between the Farm Bureau and the Solar Energy Industry Association. This amendment requires each lease for the installation of solar equipment to include a decommissioning plan with financial assurances. The plan may not be waived by agreement. This amendment does make this a statewide standard. An individual or local government harmed may seek a declaratory judgment. The effective date is June 1st, 2022, and the bill will apply to agreements entered into after that date. But if an older lease is amended, both parties may agree that this bill will apply going forward. Pending any questions, I'd appreciate your support on this amendment that makes the bill.
Thank you, sir. Any questions for the sponsor? Representative Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for bringing the legislation. I appreciate that because we hear a lot about solar. What's going to happen? How does this legislation fit in maybe in terms of what has already happened in the past? And what are they doing with these solar panels that, I don't know if they've worn out or whatever they're having to replace? Is there some place to put them? Can you speak to that, Mr.
Representative Hurt?
Representative Shaw, I can't speak to any agreements that were made and that may be moving forward. I do know that in here it states that, if an older lease is amended, both parties may agree to use this legislation moving forward. But I also think, moving forward, and can't really speak much to what's been agreed to and what's up now, I think that's what's brought up the issue is the concerns for landowners on these contracts and agreements and what we're doing. And hopefully the TASR study that we'll be seeing move forward will help to address a lot of that also.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions for the sponsor? Do want to clarify that the amendment says that this will go into effect upon becoming a law. So,
yes,
just one clarification there. And I guess I had one question. Is this kind of establishing a minimum standard for these agreements where they could have other language and details put in contracts between landowners and companies?
Yes, sir. I would think that would be the goal. Is a great point. Is a minimum standard, and anyone could work up from there with agreements.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, we'll be voting on House Bill 2056 as amended. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Your bill moves on to the full Ag Committee, sir. Next on the agenda, we have item number 18, House Bill 1690 by Representative Hurt. We have a motion and a second. Sir, you're recognized on House Bill 1690.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess I've never done this, but moving forward, I would respectfully ask for a roll call vote on this, Mr. Chair. House Bill
hold on. Sorry. Without objection, we'll have a roll call vote. Any objections? Hearing no objections, we'll have the roll call vote, sir.
Thank you.
You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. House Bill 1690 addresses the Delta 8 product that we're seeing on the market now. We're making an attempt to take some steps toward regulation of Delta 8, which is derived from hemp. It prevents the purchase of these products to anyone under 21. It prevents access to these products to persons under 21 without supervision by a parent or court-appointed guardian. And it creates a schedule of hemp-derived cannabinoids to be subjected to age limitation and to the privilege tax, which is 6.6% on wholesale purchases. It requires a license to wholesale or retail these products, which is $200 annually. And with that, Mr. Chair, I believe we have groups on, all kinds of groups to speak on this, if we're okay to have them make their presentations.
Thank you, sir. Without objection, we do have several on the list, or a few on the list, that want to speak today. So Representative Hurt?
I apologize. We are, Mr. Chair, working with Revenue and Ag. We have the language for an amendment, but we're working with them to get Ag and Revenue happy with what we're trying to do here. So I think it's been discussed with you, but we don't have an amendment ready, but we do have language and in discussions trying to work through that with those two departments.
If you don't have a good contact in Revenue, I can recommend somebody. Without objection, we will go out of session to hear from some of these folks. I believe that was what you desired, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay. We will go out of session without objection. First on the list, I have Joe Kirkpatrick that's requested to speak. You'll turn the microphone on, identify yourself, and you will have 3 minutes.
Test. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Joe Kirkpatrick, Tennessee Growers Coalition. We've had the pleasure of speaking to each of you at least twice about this bill. So what I'm really focused on today, again, as the sponsor pointed out, we're seeking an amendment that will make the bill, if we make it to full committee, that cleans up and removes some redundancies, and also would move CBN to the taxable list, because CBN has anecdotally has some sleep-inducing qualities, and we want to make sure that it's covered and that we can handle serving size in rulemaking. Again, assuming we get that far. And what I do also want to say is I had the opportunity to speak a week ago Friday to the Medical Cannabis Commission, and as you so aptly pointed out, Chairman Todd, there's not any cannabinoid needed for a medical program in Tennessee that can't already be derived from hemp. And so, I also asked Sheriff Paul Thomas, who's a member from Gibson County. I don't know which one of y'all has Gibson County, Chairman Halford. And I asked him, because what I'm really here to do is sort of challenge the fiscal note, and no offense to fiscal review, because we don't have any data. And that's one thing that this bill will solve, is it will provide us data to accurately analyze this. But I asked Sheriff Thomas how many places he thought were selling D8 in Gibson County, and I said, what, 100? And he goes, no, probably more like 50. So I said, well, what's the population of Gibson County? It's 50,000. So roughly one store per 1,000 people, and if you extrapolated that to 6.9 million Tennesseans, there'd be about 6,900 retailers. Fiscal Review said there would be 150 licensees under this, and of course, Kelly and I got a big laugh out of that. Kelly Hess, our executive director, and I was like, we both live, she lives in Hendersonville and I live in Goodlettsville, and within 10 square miles of our houses, there's probably 150 stores selling it. So we just, we've actually taken a much lower number, 4,000 stores, 2,000 a month in sales, would generate 96 million in annual sales. Sales tax that we estimate is already being captured by this is $8.8 million. We would add, then we would talk about the permits, 4,000 permits. We would be recommending in rules that a Tier 5 food safety license would be the minimum one for this to be able to carry these products, and that's $200 each. That's $800,000. If wholesale is 50% of retail, that's $48 million on the privilege tax of 6.6%, yielding $3,168,000 a year, roughly off of. And I am taking Fiscal Review's cost of implementation, which was informed by the Department of Agriculture, to be about $1.6 million a year to run this program. So if we added the cost of the licenses, added the cost of implementation and took that from the revenue generated by the licenses and the tax, we'd be at 2.3 million positive revenue, which could be used obviously to fund the grain and fiber initiatives we've talked about so much, and we spoke to the full committee about last week. And with increased consumer confidence and safety in hemp products, we would expect sales to double. So that would actually create a positive fiscal note of $5.5 million that would be payable to the Department of Agriculture, and that would also add to the general fund another $8.8 million for a net gain of $14.3 million. That's all I've really got at this point. I think some of the other folks are going to talk more about specifics, benefits, drawbacks, whatever, and I'm glad to answer any questions that the committee has. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Kirkpatrick. Anyone have questions for the speaker? Representative Halsey.
Thank you. Just 2 or 3 or 4 things. Does the bill specifically say that the revenue generated by this will go to study programs on how we can get a processing system in this state?
Mr. Chairman, may I?
Yes.
It's earmarked for the Department of Agriculture to administrate the hemp program, so that would largely be up to the commissioner, I guess, and staff there to make recommendations to the General Assembly and Finance about how to spend that money. But yes, generally it does cover that. Yes, sir.
Representative Halsey.
Okay, I'm through then.
And Representative Cochran.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, again, just from someone who is not incredibly familiar with the different variants of hemp and cannabinoids. And so Delta 8, 9, and 10, can you get high using those?
Mr. Chairman,
yes.
Yes, sir, you can. And that's why we are so strongly calling for this to be limited to those that are 21 and older, and to allow the department to regulate serving size, because there's a peer-reviewed study from New Zealand that we could provide for y'all before next week that shows that Delta 8 is roughly between 1/4 and 1/3 as psychoactive as Delta 9, the active ingredient in marijuana. But so it's significantly weaker. But again, the uninformed consumer needs to be protected by the rules and regs.
Representative Cochran.
And so with this, though, so again, so we would say 21, and you can't buy it unless you're 21 years of age or older, but you would still envision that it would be sold in convenience stores, gas stations, that kind of thing?
Mr. Kirkpatrick.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you very much.
Cochran. Okay. Any other questions? I have one, and it's concerning the limits, the legal limits for hemp products of any kind of psychoactive ingredients. Is it accurate to say that an item cannot have more than 0.3% of any of these psychoactive elements, or does that only apply to the THC Delta 9?
Mr. Chairman, under state and federal law, it only applies to Delta 9 THC. And what I would say to that is there's another thing that we do want to handle in rules, and there's what we would call lab shopping of DEA labs nationally to sort of how do I say this delicately, game the result. We would be asking in rules that not only did a DEA lab certification be required, but that a Tennessee Department of Agriculture certified lab would also be used. And then that way our testing protocols could be in line with the mass spectrometer that the department owns and that TBI owns.
So anything with Delta 8, for example, any product with Delta 8, there's no limit on the amount of Delta 8 that is in it currently, what's being sold in the stores?
Presently, no. Yes, sir. That's why we want these rules so bad. This will allow us to promulgate rules to sort of control that serving size.
And does this bill address, and I can ask the sponsor for this, but does this bill address, I know you mentioned in your testimony about limiting the quantity within a certain product to protect the consumer, but that doesn't limit the quantity they can purchase of that item. Would that be?
That's to the best of my understanding, Mr. Chairman. Yes, that's correct. So, for instance, if you had a package of these Delta 8 gummies, for instance, and there were 20 in there, the department could say, well, a serving size, a reasonable serving size would be, and anecdotally, I could say anywhere from 5, 10 milligrams, maybe even 20, 25 milligrams on the high end. But that would not prevent a person, just like it wouldn't prevent a person from taking 4 shots of Jack Daniels or 5 shots of Jack Daniels that purchases that product. This would be no different, but it would at least set some sort of reasonable framework of what's responsible.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, we appreciate you coming today.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members.
Next, we have Ms. Elizabeth Stroker from the Department of Safety and Homeland Security. You can make your way up and identify yourself, and we'd be glad to hear from you. You have 3 minutes as well.
Elizabeth Stroker, Legislative Director for the Department of Safety. Wanted to follow up on some comments that were just made and express the department's biggest concern with the bill. While we do appreciate putting some type of regulation around this Delta 8 and 10, which currently is not regulated at all, our biggest problem is that while there may be the ability to cap quantity, which I didn't see that, so that may be something coming in an amendment, but there's nothing in there capping the amount of THC content, and that's our biggest concern. We spoke with the sponsor, and if we could get some type of cap similar to what you have to have with Delta 9 or any other product that is legalized for use that is considered either medical cannabis or hemp, it has a THC cap in it for obvious reasons of even if you have a quantity limit of, okay, only you can 25 milligrams, what if that has a 100% THC content? That is something they may not know, and that is going to be very dangerous if it's something that they're not aware of. And so we're coming from, we understand that there's a need to regulate this, and all we're asking is that like any other product that is authorized under this body to be used by the general public, that it have a THC cap in it. The reason it doesn't have it in there now is, as it was alluded to in the last speaker, is that Delta 9 is specific to what is considered for THC because your 8 and your 10, they didn't exist at the time. And so those are new concepts, new compounds that have just not been considered or added. And so we would ask that we could have some type of cap on the 8 and 9, just like the 8 and 10, just as the 9 has in current law and in this bill, and that would make the department comfortable with it.
Any questions for our guest? I just have one, I guess. Does that, what your statement about the Delta 8 and 10, does that have anything to do with when you're talking about total THC?
Yes, sir. So Delta 9 specifically is obviously within our code, which is why the 8 and 10 is currently unregulated because we're so restricted to Delta 9 in our code. And so the cap is you can only have, for hemp purposes, 0.3% of THC content within that Delta 9 product. And this bill doesn't have any cap on the 8 and the 10 like the 9 has. And so we would respectfully ask that that also be considered to make sure that people do not have a substance that is going to impair them very significantly without them even being aware of it.
Okay, thank you for that. And the last question from me, at least, is there anything on a federal level that regulates total THC?
For 8
products.
and 10 or hemp in general?
Hemp products.
Hemp, per the federal law, has to be 0.3 or less.
Total THC or just Delta 9?
Delta 9, yes. So we're not talking 8 or 10 because those two are not scheduled yet by the feds.
Okay.
Because it was not there when the 9 was put
And
into
they
the
don't have a
schedule.
restriction on total THC, it's just Delta 9?
Just Delta 9, yes, no other
I could
compounds.
not remember, but I thought that was the case.
Mhm.
Okay. Any other questions for our speaker? Thank you for coming today. We have one more. We have Evan Austell. If you'll step up to the microphone, identify yourself, who you're with, you'll have 3 minutes, sir.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Evan Austell. I'm with Southern Biomedical Industries. We're a biomedical research company in Shelby County, and we're using Delta 8 to get people off of opioids, and it works. There's a lot of confusion about Delta 8 right now, confusion that leads to fear because it's unregulated. We do not need to live in fear. And we've been here before. This is an ag issue. We regulate eggs. We regulate milk. We regulate gasoline at the pump. And we also regulate things like firearms, and alcohol, and tobacco. But we don't tell our farmers that they can't grow tobacco just because a kid may get a pack of cigarettes. We pass regulations that keep cigarettes out of the hands of minors. And we don't tell distillers of spirits that they can't make alcohol because alcohol can be dangerous. We make sure that it's taxed so that we can have the funds to be sure we know what's in those products and that they're safe. We don't take away people's guns because guns might be harmful. We make sure they're licensed so that people that need and want, deserve to have guns can, and those who don't won't. And that's how it is for hemp. There's so many benefits for what the hemp plant can be from our growers. You all passed fantastic laws in 2017. We're only just beginning. We've been at it just 5 years. But we have as many licensed growers as anywhere in the country, and our products are just as great. Our manufacturers and retailers make first-in-class products that are safe and healthy, and people enjoy them. But here's an angle people don't talk about, is what I see. We use Delta 8 to get people off of opioids. We manufacture products that we support 12-step clinics and halfway houses in Shelby County. We're researching this. We've asked Shelby County for funding from the opioid settlement. We've asked Governor Lee to study how cannabinoids are non-lethal, non-addictive ways to get people away from the cravings of opioids, from that grasp that leads to relapse and death. And if we're not doing that and supporting it and regulating and growing this in a way that we can study, we're damning our citizens to a lifetime of addiction on things like methadone and Suboxone. And we can do better. And we're building on this. And so I ask for your support for common sense regulation, for things that help support the understanding and the growth of the industry, not to be in fear, not to live in the grasp of addiction, but to learn and grow for the benefit of everybody in Tennessee. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Austell. Anyone have any questions for the speaker? Seeing none, thank you so much for coming and testifying. We appreciate your involvement. Don't have anybody else on the list to testify, so we will go back into session. All right, do we have any questions for our sponsor? Representative Reedy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and this is to Chairman Hurt. Are you wanting us to roll this a week and get that amendment in front of us? What's your intent, sir?
Representative Hurt?
Thank you for that. Mr. Chairman, thank you. My intent is to get it moving and continue to work and amend it and add the amendments in full. But we've kind of been working this thing and looking through it, and I think we're in a position where that, again, working, it's taken a while because there's been so many concerns that we want to try to address that we're just now getting the language, and my intent was to move it forward.
Representative Holsey.
Thank you. I should have asked one of the speakers this question. The issue came up of content of Delta 8. In a normal hemp plant, what's the maximum on a normal hemp plant of Delta 8 that you can have in that plant? And let's take the gummy bear deal. I can understand if you have 0.3% in each gummy bear and you ate 100 of them, yeah, you're probably going to feel that, I'd say. But that's because it's already processed to do that. But is a normal hemp plant, what's the maximum of Delta 8 that it can produce? And the issue is the growing and transportation of that in that process. Can that become an issue where the plant itself becomes that potent?
Representative Hurt?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Halsey, the way I understand it is Delta 8 is prevalent in a hemp plant, but because it's not tested, and again, I'm trying to make sure I state this correctly, there is no maximum because what is measured is Delta 9 in the plant through the Department of Ag to keep it within our laws. But as far as the Delta 8, as far as I'm aware, there's no testing that tries to measure how much is in each plant, and that could vary depending on the variety of the plant. Also, I would think, again, may be better to refer that question to somebody that knows a little more about the plants as they grow.
Okay. Representative Shaw?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just didn't, I understood you want to move it, but are you saying you want to amend it in the next, but you want to put an amendment on it when you move it to the next level?
Representative Hurt?
Yes, sir, that's my intent.
Okay, I just want to understand it. Thank you.
Any other questions? Representative Cochran?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was just going to express just, and the sponsor can comment if he thinks maybe I might be maybe kind of off on my understanding. So, first of all, I understand that currently it's not regulated at all, and this would at least put some sort of guardrails on this, and I appreciate that. I guess my concern is, are we legitimizing something that basically where you can go buy something in a convenience store that does have this kind of psychedelic type effect, where you can get this fairly strong high off of this, and I understand the speaker spoke about its use, its medical use for addiction to opioids. I think those are probably all valid points and things that we should look at, and I'm open to that. But again, my concern is, when they're going in to buy it from a gas station, they're probably not buying it for that reason, to help with an opioid addiction. The gas station attendant isn't a medical professional. So that's my concern. And again, I get now it's really unregulated at all. So this puts some step in there, and I appreciate that. But my concern more is legitimizing something to say that it's okay to go buy this at a gas station. Is just as long as you're 21 and up, you can go buy it there. And so that's where I'm a little bit uneasy. I also wanted to just add, I do understand the need at some point we need to, for farmers who are transporting it, like that doesn't need to be against the law for you to get that from your farm to wherever it's processed. Like that needs to be addressed. That's a serious issue. But again, I just wanted to tell you where my concern was just the fact that are we kind of legitimizing that for just a basic sale at a gas station?
Representative Hurt, and if you don't mind clarifying with the transport question as well.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you for that, Representative. As far as the transport, we do have a bill to try to address that. I know the Department of Ag currently has permits to transport when it leaves the field to go to wherever it will be stored or hung until it's taken to the next step. But we do currently have legislation to try to address those situations. And the administration and the Department of Safety have been more than willing to work with us on that one to try to get some kind of permits to address that. So we are working on that. As far as legitimizing what you were asking, I see it as a product that's out there. I see that it's a product that, sure, just like any product that was mentioned earlier, people are going to purchase for various intentions. With this legislation, it would require you had to be at least 21 to make your choice of why you purchased that product. But on the other hand, and I appreciate the speakers today because there is a benefit that people are seeing to this product. They're taking certain amounts they're responsible with it, and they're taking certain amounts to sleep or for different reasons. So I just see this as an opportunity to put some regulations, create some positive fiscal note in order to start building an infrastructure around an industry that is new, and I think the industry's ready for it. But also, to promote those studies if possible, to start doing some things to where we can educate the public and benefit from a product that is already federally legal. And that's my intention. So, could it be used for something? Absolutely. Everything at some point is going to be used that direction. But our goal is to educate and to create an infrastructure around this industry and let people know the responsible ways to use the product.
Representative Cochran, anybody?
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Anyone else have a question? Seeing none, if you're ready to vote, without objection, we'll be voting on House Bill 1690. And roll call vote has been requested. We didn't have an amendment. So, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Representative Cochran,
No.
Darby, Halford, Holsey, Hurt, Potts, Reedy, Shaw, Todd. Mr. Chairman, 7 ayes, 1 no.
The bill carries. House Bill 1690 moves on to House Ag Full Committee. This brings us to the heel of our calendar, House Bill 2149, and it's been requested that bill be rolled 1 week in anticipation of an amendment. Any other business, roll 1 week. Any other business for the committee? Representative Reedy, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion at this time that we reconsider our actions on House Bill 2775.
We have a motion and a second to reconsider our actions on House Bill 2775. I believe that takes a roll call vote. And any discussion on that? Seeing none, we'll be voting on the motion to reconsider our actions on House Bill 2775. Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll?
Representative Cochran? No. Darby?
Yes.
Halford? Aye. Holsey?
Yes.
Hurt? Yes. Potts? Reedy?
Aye.
Shaw?
Aye.
Chairman Todd?
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, 7 ayes, 1 no.
The motion carries, and we will add that to next week's calendar, I believe. Is that the correct posture? Out of order. My understanding is that will be calendared next week on next week's subcommittee calendar. So that the motion does carry. If I haven't already done that, excuse me, House Bill 2775 to be reconsidered. Representative Darby, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I may be out of order here, but I want to say welcome to one of the best mayors in the country, not just the state, Joseph Butler from Carroll County. Welcome.
The timing was out of order, but not the comments. Thank you. Any other business before our committee today? We have a motion and a second to adjourn. Without objection, we are adjourned.